Pretty decent games too. Chiefs are playing strong.
Theoretically, everybody's interested. 3 out of 4 are interested. Theoretically.
Wow, you're gonna discount the Jared Stidham Truthers fan club of 5 people?
For all Raiders?
No, there's a Patriot in there.
All right, what up? Saturday football coming your way as we're breaking this down for No House Advantage. If you play over there, check out the pick'em contests as well as playing versus the house. We're going to break it all down for you with our projections from Stokastic.com, which are free. You can follow right along. Stokastic.com, NFL, free tools. Boom. Check out the NHA projections. I'm Pete McCarthy. We got Mike Lawrence producing. Geoff Ulrich with us. And Geoff, how are we this weekend?
We are doing pretty good, pretty solid. Got a little bit of golf sweat going. Got 2 days of football. Yeah. It feels like a pretty solid weekend, to be honest. So good for betting, good for sports. I'm up for talking about the slate. No House Advantage always as well, bringing some good contests. So always good contests up there. You guys should check it out.
This feels like a practice run for the playoffs, right? Because next Saturday we'll have
tryouts,
real games. On this Saturday. Not that they're terrible today, but the Chiefs, they are playing for something here with that bye on the line. I suppose, they could end up being this neutral site championship game, so we can't just say home field advantage, but we could certainly talk about that bye that the Chiefs can get in this spot. And then the Raiders are, as we joked before, playing for the Jared Stidham Truthers. And then you got Titans, Jaguars, big game, AFC South on the line as far as that goes. I guess, generally we talk about a lot of these slates on No House Advantage when it is a showdown slate on a Monday or Thursday night, when it's a full Sunday and you have a ton of games. Is there anything that jumps out at you, a 2-game slate that makes it a little unique? That's something that, we can keep in mind as we start to look ahead towards these playoff slates coming up the next few weeks as well.
Yeah, no, I think for these shorter slates, like one thing you should always keep in mind is that it's usually easier to nail one game rather than trying to spread it. So, I think most people are like, well, I don't want to take too many from one game, but if you, and we've seen this before, like on primetime slates where everybody goes under in a game and they all end up hitting. So I think that you'll actually have a fairly unique lineup if you kind of stack a little bit more on these shorter slates than you realize. So it doesn't have to be all unders. It can be all overs too. But regardless of the way you're looking, I think that like game stacking here, you can really get like 6 props there from one game or something. And then you only need to get like 2 spots right in the next one or whatever, maybe 4. So I think that's one thing I would really, from a strategy standpoint, don't be scared to go all in on one game, especially if you got a good feeling of the way it's going to go, because if you nail it, I mean, there's not going to be many people out there doing that. And you could also be getting some leverage on the field too with some of the way you're doing it. So.
Makes perfect sense, just like DFS. Less things that you have to get right if you throw those stacks together. Give us a like, subscribe, keep up with all of our shows, our DFS offers, our giveaways. And then once you do subscribe, hit that notification button. They'll let you know when our shows go live. Don't forget to sign up for the Stokastic Hall of Fame by changing your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can do it on No House Advantage as well. Just download the Stokastic avatar from stokastic.com/avatar. And if you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, tweet the win to @StokasticHOF on Twitter, or you can email your screenshot and you win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So be sure to take advantage of that. So 3 pickup contests on No House Advantage today. The big one, $15 entry, $5,000 to first place, 1,200 total entrants. Obviously, we've got 2 games to look at here. I guess simply it's pretty easy to go over on Chiefs Raiders across the board and then under on Titans Jaguars across the board if you just want to generalize these games as much as possible to start.
Yeah, that was kind of what the theme that we had yesterday as well. That some of the props and especially in Jacksonville looked like they were too big. I mean, we got like 5.5 reception props for Kirk and Zay Jones, which both projecting big. I could see one of the guys getting there. Definitely, I don't think both of them will get there. And if it is, it's probably bad news for the Jags because they're passing so much, which means they're behind. Trevor Lawrence has a big prop. Josh Dobbs has a monster prop, considering how much considering our projection really, which has been a 160 basically for the week. So yeah, there was lots of overs to pick from in that Tennessee Jags game. On the other side, I mean, like there's big props on the Chiefs as well, but it's much easier to envision Patrick Mahomes just going nuts and going for like 350 or 400 yards or even 450 yards because he's chasing that record and going over that 330 mark. So those will probably be the trends that you're looking at. I think you're going to have a lot of unders in the Tennessee Jags game, and then a lot of overs people taking, probably even going against the projections that we have in some spots for the Chiefs Raiders just because they're playing for that higher scoring game. So
I wasn't aware of the record. So Patrick Mahomes is 450 yards from the season passing record.
He's 430. Yeah. So he needs, I threw out 450, but yeah, he's, I believe it's 429 or 430. I think he needs 430 to break it.
Well, that's interesting because, anytime you get a carrot for one of these guys, especially, so if I think about the Chiefs, I was thinking, maybe they start to rest guys, especially if they're up big at halftime, but they do have something to play for here being that bye. And then because you do have the bye, maybe you're not in as much of a rush to start taking guys out of the game. So, because you need Patrick Mahomes probably to play this full game if you're going to get to 331 passing yards, as we're looking at here. Our projections for much lower than that for Patrick Mahomes, but this is the worst pass defense in the NFL that he's going up against in these Raiders. And considering that Jarrett Stidham looked pretty good last week against San Francisco, maybe these guys can push each other to get a few overs. Obviously, Stidham is a pretty solid over, just 177.5 passing yards on his end.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this one yesterday. This is one of those props on Stidham at 177.5 where I don't even the scenarios where he goes under just feel like so few and far between. Not that it can't happen. Anything can happen in an NFL game, but I don't know if it's necessarily one I would be getting contrarian with and being like, oh yeah, let's take all the unders here. Like if you're going to take unders on Raiders, that's fine. There's definitely spots you can do it. I mean, we have guys projected as unders like Darren Waller and even Hunter Renfrow. So, but I don't know about the Stidham one. I would just take the over, put it in a nice, high, safe spot and go. To me, it's not our highest projected prop of the week, but it feels like it should be. So I think over on 177.5 against the Chiefs defense that, has been allowing a lot of yards on the ground and through the air. And then just with how Stidham looked, my argument against it is just like, maybe you catch one of those random games, but like I would just take the over here.
Well, let's go through these passing games and who Mahomes Stidham could be passing to. And we'll start with the Raiders. They have Darren Waller. They have Hunter Renfrow, obviously Devontae Adams. Our projections like the unders on a lot of these guys, especially Renfrow and Waller. And both of them had some targets last week. Renfrow, 4 targets. Waller was busy, 3 catches over 70 yards against the San Francisco 49ers. And I put extra emphasis on that game because it's the only one that we've seen Jarrett Stidham start. So I kind of want to get a feel for where he's looking to go with the ball. What do you take away from last week? And, where are you looking as far as these Raiders receivers go?
Yeah.
Mac Hollins in the mix too. You got a lot of different ways to go.
It's kind of a weird spot because not only do you have a new quarterback playing with Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow all of a sudden, if this was Derek Carr a year ago and Renfrow and Waller were starting, you'd be like, let's just smash the over on both these guys. But, Devontae Adams is there. Obviously we have Stidham who really peppered Adams last week. They had a good game, but Mac Hollins is playing more snaps than Hunter Renfrow right now, like quite a bit more. He's basically starting wide receiver 2. Renfro's kind of getting mixed in. We've even seen Keelan Cole on the field a bit. And Foster Moreau is playing more snaps than Darren Waller. So my feeling is if you're going to go over on one, and I don't think it's like a bad play because, there's a lot of scenarios where the Raiders are passing late in this game and maybe this game stays close. The Chiefs, not a good team at covering big spreads. I think that Waller is probably the guy I would look to be contrarian on to take the over. He played a few more snaps than Hunter Renfrow. He got more targets. And I think that Darren Waller looks pretty good. I think Darren Waller's kind of playing for a contract next year as well. He wants to show people that he's still got something. So to me, this game kind of means a little bit for Darren Waller. I like the connection that he had. They connected on a couple big plays. Mm-hmm. I would probably be, between receptions and yards, we kind of have them basically as similar. They're both projected as under. So I don't think there's an edge in going over on one, but that's where I would look to get contrarian. If you're looking to play like that, this big, 35-30 game, where, Stidham's going like for 300. I think going over on Waller is probably where I would start versus Renfro. And Renfro, I would probably just take the under there and feel pretty good about it. Again, he's been bypassed by Matt Collins for whatever reason. Waller's on the field now too. He's basically fighting for targets. So 4 catches here, that feels almost like his ceiling, which at 3.5, you really don't mind taking the under there.
What do you prefer if you're going to go under, the receiving yardage or the receptions? Now, you think if Renfro gets to 4 catches, he'd get to 30 yards, but that's not really a given with the kind of routes that he runs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. We do have the receptions projected as slightly higher. I would probably lean there. I think there's a lot of mouths to feed right now, and they still have, they're looking to get Zamir White in. He's a bit of a pass catching back, so I would probably lean the receptions, but it's pretty close to be honest on those marks. Renfro is a guy who could still take one, but he doesn't run like a ton, like his ADOT isn't huge or anything like that, so he's not running a ton of downfield routes. I think you even double up there. And take the under on both. It's one of those situations where I think if he has like 2 catches for 20 yards, really wouldn't shock me too much right now.
Quickly on the Raiders running game, Josh Jacobs, 62.5 rushing yards. Doesn't seem like a lot, but he's been questionable this week. He's been banged up the past few weeks, has played through it, but he's been out of practice for personal reasons the last couple of days. So I guess we'll find out closer to 3:00 Eastern time exactly what his status is. But how does it affect things whether or not Jacobs plays?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would just take, obviously you need to make sure he's active, but I would just take the under there if he is active. Like, don't even worry about that, because what I've seen in the sports books is Zamir White went from about plus 400 to score a touchdown to plus 125 this week. That tells you something. Like, he's going to be involved. He's going to be on the field. They've talked about wanting him to get him touches. If Jacobs plays, just take the under on his yardage. We have it projected as an under anyways. And, if he doesn't play, you're not going to get any points and you'll just get 0 for it. So don't do that. But if he's active, take the under. It's already projected as a solid under for us. And also now, I think with White and all this stuff going on, like he may not play. Like he legitimately may just stay on the sidelines and like take a couple snaps and that's it. So
yeah, he could play a little bit. Jacobs does have a rushing title on the line, but he's also 162 yards ahead of Nick Chubb, who's in second place. So, maybe he just wants to get a few yards to feel a little better about that. But he seems to be pretty safe to take home that rushing title by Monday. All right, Chiefs-wise, we talked about Patrick Mahomes. Certainly has the ability to go over the 330.5 line. He's done it 7 times already this season. The most interesting guy to me, I think, is Kadarius Toney, and we have him as a huge under, and I would agree with that today. I think that might change come the postseason, where Toney's going to be a relatively important player for the Chiefs, but my gut tells me they're going to want to keep him healthy for the postseason today. He's going to be he's more than a gadget player, but he's been more active of late. Still only played 32% of the snaps last week. What do you make of Toney here? Big play threat, but we're looking at him having to get to 4 catches in order to be the over on receptions.
Yeah, obviously got the 4 catches last week. The one reason why I'd stick with this one and why I'd back it is Mecole Hardman should be active this week, I believe.
He's questionable.
He's questionable, so he's not 100%, but I think he's going to play. Yeah. Oh, God, that actually may not be true. He's actually looking like a very game time decision. I think they're going to get him some snaps. It may not even be enough to worry about, because it feels like if he is active, he may only play like 10 snaps anyways. But yeah, the Toney thing is, he's topped out. Like he's looking good, but like you said, they're really going to unleash him for 12 catches here when he's just been so fragile. I don't know. Juju and Marcus Valdes-Scantling, even Justin Watson playing a ton of snaps. I know he doesn't get a lot of targets, but they're kind of just bringing Toney in on those 4 wide receiver sets. I don't know how much that's going to change. Sky Moore is still involved too. So,
Sky Moore's out
here. What's that?
Sky Moore is out.
He's out. Okay, he's not involved. So we may get Mecole Hardman as the dude who comes in. But I guess you could be contrarian here, but I think that I'm kind of in line with the projections on this one. I don't think his role is going to change a ton in the finale, but he's just such a talented player. It's a little bit scary taking unders on guys like this, but we haven't seen a game where he's vaulted over Marcus Valdes-Scantling or taken that Justin Watson role on the other side. he's just still the gadget player right now, which you're right. Like he's way more than that, but maybe
I think in the postseason he will be, but they're not going to unleash him totally. So like Kadarius Toney's top 3 games, receiving yardage wise, 71, 57, 12.
Yeah.
So, like there's a big gap there that we just haven't seen him, take that Tyreek Hill role exactly.
The most targets he's seen in a game for the Chiefs is 5. So, like he could get there, but like 4 receptions, kind of like we just talked about, like it feels like his ceiling. So you don't mind taking the under on a 3.5 there.
Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, any strong feelings there? And I guess Travis Kelce you can mix in too as far as the rest of the Chiefs passing game. Then we'll get to the running game.
I like taking an over on Kelce, especially if you're going to take an over on Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you look at what Kelce's done against the Raiders in his career, I think it's 6 of his last 8. He's gone for 80 yards or more. I know he had that weird 4 touchdown game against them earlier. We had like 20 yards, but that's kind of a fluke, obviously. I think what you're going to see from the Chiefs is trying to take care of business really early, which is going to mean going to Travis Kelce in the man coverage early, getting downfield quick, just getting the Raiders on their heels, and then just trying to get those 2 quick scores. So it really wouldn't shock me if Kelce went over this in like the first half even. He's certainly had games like that against the Raiders before. So Andy Reid knows what he's doing. This is where, they're not going to get fancy, like you said, and then unleash Tony or unleash something new. They're going to go right to their bread and butter here. I feel pretty good about Kelce. And obviously if you're going for the over with Mahomes, I think you might as well take the over on the receiving yards with Kelce. It's bigger, but it's certainly doable. I mean, I think the other thing is he's gone over this total like 9 times this year already. It's 8 or 9 times, but he's certainly gone over it at a decent clip. So nothing wrong there with Kelce. I like the over there. The receivers to me with the Chiefs, it's just a headache. Like, I mean, the under on Juju looks good, but who knows? I mean, this could be the game where he pops up with 7 catches again. I would definitely lean under on both those guys with MVS and Juju, but they've been a headache all year. And quite frankly, I'm tired of talking about them. I wish Kadarius Toney would just vault these guys and like take 10 catches a game so we could have like that Tyreek Hill option again.
So end of the day, pair Mahomes with Kelce and then guess and check with the rest of the receivers. If you go under a Mahomes, go under a Kelce, over. You can look at it like that. And we did see Brandon in the chat likes Isaiah Pacheco today. Just really quick, 67.5 rushing yards. Seems kind of tall, but he has been over this number in 5 of his last 8 games. And it wouldn't be shocking to see the Chiefs just want to run the ball out of this and get that bye and be done with things.
That is a very realistic scenario too, right? And if you're like, we have Pacheco projected with a 67.8% probability to the under. I do like the under here, but like if you're playing Pacheco over, which is completely fine. I mean, the Chiefs have a legit number 1 offense. If Pacheco's going, they're going to ride them and keep their other dudes healthy. And I think it mixes really well with unders on like Mahomes and potentially the wide receivers. I mean, if Pacheco is going and does get 20 carries in this game, there's just not like, he's not going to be throwing much. He may throw 28 times in the game, should mean some pretty easy unders on the wide receivers, I would think. So I think that mixes well with those, comeback plays. Like it correlates pretty well with a Mahomes under and some unders on the wide receivers. So may even mix well with, the other side as well. Like if Pacheco's going, you could see, you may even want to throw in like a low point play on like a Darren Waller to come back on the other side for like an over on the yards, because it probably means Stidham's throwing a little bit more late in the game.
And we're talking No House Advantage, their pick'em contest, $10,000 to first place later today. It locks at about 4:00 Eastern, or the time of that Chiefs Raiders game, 4:30 Eastern time, I should say. So check it out. We broke down Chiefs Raiders. Again, if you haven't signed up for No House Advantage, $100 free deposit match. You typically see a lot of overlay over there, especially the NBA contest. So keep an eye on all that as we get closer to lock. It is a Saturday NFL. I don't know how much we'll see, but maybe for the late game, just keep an eye on it all. And look, we have free projections over at Stokastic.com for No House Advantage contests. And you can use them for the pickup contest. You can also gauge them versus the house if you want to play there as well. You go 5 out of 5 versus the house. You can mix in golf, NBA, NFL, the whole thing. You get 20 times your entry fee. All right, so let's get into this Titans-Jaguars game a little bit. Not expecting as many fireworks here. Certainly Vegas isn't. Over under of 40 here. The Jaguars are about a touchdown favorite. Let's start with the Jags. Trevor Lawrence has been terrific of late. Big line, though, on him. 265.5 passing yards. I guess my question is whether Tennessee would push Lawrence enough to get the opportunities, because you figure the Titans are just going to run Derrick Henry all day. Remember, they didn't have him the last game that Dobbs started against the Cowboys. So I feel like it's difficult to see Lawrence getting there in a win and a loss, no matter how this game goes.
Yeah. Like you almost need, it feels like for Lawrence to get there, either it's going to be have to be hyper efficient, and like the Jags are coming out and just like laying it down. Like he's going to get like 200 yards in the first half. They're going to be up like 21-0. It's all passing. And that is doable against this Tennessee secondary. That is an outcome, but like you're going to need it to be, you're going to need Trevor Lawrence to just be like wheeling here, like basically Patrick Mahomes and coming out slinging, or it's going to be the exact opposite where Derrick Henry is running for like 2 80-yard touchdowns in the first half. And Trevor Lawrence is just spending the entire second half throwing the ball. So it's doable, but like those feel like the extreme scenarios, like we're on like you need, like these kind of 10% ish outcomes at the end. I think the middle is the 80% where he goes under about, like 80% of the time. So yeah, it's a big number. I look at this game as, the Titans are going to try and muck it up a little bit.
Yep.
They're even if Henry has some success, they're probably going to slow the pace down. There just may not be enough pass attempts. So we have this projected as a really like big gap. I mean, we're talking like a 30-40 yard gap here. So under to me is a pretty solid play. Under on Josh Dobbs is projecting out very similarly as well. Dobbs is interesting. I can't get there. Like if it was like 190, maybe I would say I think that's a good contrarian move. You could play for the big Jags win and Dobbs passing late in the game with some junk yards, but 224, man, that seems that's not good. If you got, unless Josh Dobbs comes out and he's like just amazing, but that just seems like such a rare scenario. So,
well, we saw Dobbs against Dallas, and I think he was better than we expected, and he still only threw for 232. And I don't see the same ability, same opportunity, I should say, for Dobbs, being that Derrick Henry is playing.
Henry is playing. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's just a different setup. They were almost desperate. They needed Dobbs to be throwing in that game because they really had no other options. So I think that they obviously have the other option. That's what they'll want to do in this game. So I do like, again, I think this game is going to be like 23-20. Like, I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I think there's going to be some,
that would be an over.
The Jags side. What's that?
That would be an over too if it was 23-20. I mean,
yeah,
that's more points than they expected.
I'm even being like hyper bullish there. So I just don't think you're right, because it's a 40 total. So I just don't think that like there's going to be that many scenarios where we get craziness. I think that like unders on Lawrence and at least one of his receivers, like I talked about off the top, Kirk and Zay Jones, both at 5.5. I like the Zay Jones under receptions more than the yards for sure. We have that projecting out strong, but like Kirk is a pretty strong under for us. But I think that, that's a fine scenario to play. It's fine to play for the unders in this game. You don't have to get fancy here, man. Take what's given to us here. We got some really strong projections on the unders. Dobbs, both quarterbacks, at least one of the Jags receivers. And, we can even like go down the list. Actually, Robert Woods is sitting there with a 48.5 receiving total. One of their strongest plays of the week actually is to be under to that. So again, like you could sweep the board here, man. Just go 6 unders right off the top. And then you don't have to guess as much about what's going on in that Raiders game. I think that's probably what our projections are saying the strongest move is this week.
That's your stack.
Stack the unders in the Tennessee Jags game.
How about the running back unders? Because for Derrick Henry, it's a big number, but we expect him to have plenty of opportunity. 104.5. And Travis Etienne is 70.5. The projections have that as an over, and he's been hot of late. So we'll get into Etienne in a bit, but let's start with Derrick Henry. At least 20 carries today, right? I mean, they're just going to run. It's going to take a lot for the Titans to get away from him.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to run for sure. I mean, the Jags defensive front has been pretty good. They limited him early in the year, but he is coming off a week of rest. So this is one where, I mean, like he could have a decent game and still go under this. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, we have it projected as kind of just a very like a coin flip. It's basically a pure coin flip for us. So not one that I necessarily feel like you have to fit in. I think if you were saying, well, I got to put this in a lineup, Geoff, like maybe it's just my last spot, but you give me a side, I would go under. I do think that the Jags defensive front is pretty good. Even on 22 carries, Henry, he's going to need to break a couple plays. And I think that the Titans could also mix Henry in the screen game a bit. I think that's a little bit of a weakness of the Jags. So, he gets a couple like screen passes. They go for 30 yards. All of a sudden he's grabbed some chunks through the air, which really hurts your rushing total. So I would lean under, but like, again, this is a pure coin flip. And I think that's a pretty solid projection from us too. He's got a 104 prop. That's basically right around where our projection is saying he's going to be. So,
Mateo is stunned that we have ETN as an over with a projected 76 rushing yards, 56% chance of going over. But I would say ETN, he's got 294 rushing yards his last 3 games. He didn't have a lot of opportunity last week because it didn't mean anything for the Jags, but he still ran for over 100 yards, granted against Houston. But for Travis Etienne here, against one of the best run defenses in the NFL, do you agree with the projections? Why do you think that the projections go over?
I mean, I think there's a few things, baked into it. I mean, look, we have the Jags here as touchdown favorites. Like, I don't think you're wrong in saying this is a tough matchup. And like the Titans are getting some guys back. Jeffrey Simmons back up front. I mean, it's a tough defensive front. So I do get, where you'd say, well, this is, I'd lean under this. And look, I mean, it's not like we have this as a smash overplay. It's a few yards over. It's like a 56% projection though. So it's not our strongest play of the week by far. There's certainly scenarios where Etienne goes under, but the Jags are projected to be up late in this game. Travis Etienne is a player who he does, he might go for 3 yards per carry on his first 15 touches and then break out for like a 40-yard run. Like he's done that. Like he did that last week. So I think there is definitely enough scenarios here where you could say, okay, I mean, he may not go over this in that many scenarios, but it is a slight projected over. I think you can play Etienne on both sides. I think that if you're going to go over on Travis Etienne and take that, I think that definitely leads you to the under on Trevor Lawrence. So I think those two correlate very nicely. And that's what we've seen the last 2 weeks as well. Like Trevor Lawrence hasn't done much, but it's really because, as Pete just said, Etienne has been just running around the yard, so to speak, and just doing everything. So some of it's their defense too, but yeah. So I think those two correlate probably the hardest on the slate, Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. So if you're going to take the over on Etienne, take the under on Lawrence. And even if you are going to take the under on Lawrence, you could still, you don't necessarily have to take, you don't necessarily have to take the over on Etienne, but they do certainly correlate well.
All right, I'm going to look at versus the house here because I always focus so much on the pick'em contest. I think that's a little more fun to discuss. But if we're looking versus the house, what jumps out at me? Derrick Henry down to 96.5 rushing yards. If you're playing versus the house, if 104 is fair,
yep,
it's an opportunity to get over. ETN's is a bit lower as well. It's 65.5 rushing yards.
Ooh, that is low.
Patrick Mahomes, 14.5 rushing yards. It's not available in the pick'em contest. So I'll throw that out at you. Does that give you any feels?
The Mahomes, I would probably stay away from it against the Raiders. I feel like they just bring so little pressure that there's a good chance he'll just be sitting back there. Also, he's chasing that record. So if anything, I may actually look to take an under on Mahomes there. I don't think he'll be busting out of the pocket much. The Etienne over is interesting at 65. That's a really low total. I would lean with our projections there and go over.
Trevor Lawrence is still 265.5 too. You can go over on the run game, under on the pass game a little bit for Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same idea, right? You want to try to stack some props together that correlate that you can hit 5 out of 5, and again, it's 20 times your entry fee.
Yeah, just because the props are a little different, you still play it the same way. If you can stack the same players from a game and get one more in there or something, absolutely. So yeah, for the versus the house, I mean, I think the Etienne makes for a good over there. It's nice for getting the same prop on Trevor Lawrence, and then. Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs game, I think is going to be a little bit more variable, harder to predict, but that Mahomes under is kind of interesting to me. I really don't think he's going to be, especially in a game where the playoffs are coming up, that he's not going to be running much, but it is Patrick Mahomes. He can get that on one carry too. So it's not like it wouldn't be a prop I'd be going out of my way to go, but I think that the under there does make a lot of sense.
I don't think he's putting his shoulder down today, but he might.
I don't think so.
He might, scamper out of bounds at the ball
Raiders,
out in front of him to get to that 15 rushing yards.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking at. So at least today, it feels like everybody has something to play for, except for the Raiders. But there's enough of. There's not as much of what we're going to have tomorrow, which is trying to figure out who's in it to win it and who doesn't care at all, because that last Sunday of the season is always a bit of a mess. There's a reason the season-long fantasy leagues don't have that last week of the season.
It's a headache. I've been doing write-ups and analyzing it all week. It's, you write up the Bears game and then Justin Fields gets pulled. You write up the Chargers game and now their starters might get pulled, but yeah, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of fun in a way. It's also kind of really going to be happy when it's over. So,
well, we'll enjoy this Saturday, kind of a little teaser for the NFL playoffs starting up next week. And we'll have live before lock coming your way at 3:00 Eastern here on the Stokastic DFS channel. And tune in tomorrow morning, full coverage of Sunday's NFL slate, which will be busy, as Geoff alluded to. Geoff Ulrich, always a pleasure. I'm Pete McCarthy. Appreciate you guys being active in the chat. We'll talk soon.